Hey, my friends, this is The Art of Prepping. Hope you guys are doing good. Over the past few weeks, I've talked to a lot of people, many of which who are preppers, and I've compiled a list off of those conversations of various, for lack of a better word, regretful actions in the past. Some preppers were not as prepared as they wish they were for what is going on currently and what could happen in the future. And I can't speak about the specifics about what is going on currently just because of all the censors here on YouTube, but you can pretty much figure it out. You know, it's early April 2020 and the threat is global. People are dying of this threat, and there's a lot of preppers that kind of feel like they're underprepared for this. And I've been getting this a lot lately, to the point that I just need to do a chat on this. So let's just chat and let's just talk about those areas that are deficient in preps. And a lot of this is common sense, but it's worth noting because so many people thought they had enough of everything. In fact, there were people up until just recently, though, telling me that they were overstocked. That they were prepared way beyond what they even needed to prepare for. And now those same people are saying, well, I should have bought more. Right? So let's just go through the first one here, and that is food and water. There are preppers that really do believe that 2 to 4 weeks of food is enough. And I mean, you and I both know that's not enough. That's just almost not even the first step of preparing in terms of amount for food and water. But yet you have people who think, in terms of, well, a local storm system, this or that. They think very short-term emergencies, and they don't think about more longer-term emergencies, kind of like what we're in now. This situation that we're dealing with is like a medium to long-term threat. And so if you don't have months worth of food, possibly even years worth of food, you're going to be forced to go out and have to get more. And if you're trying to avoid other people for the obvious reason, because you want to stay safe, then, well, you can't do that because you're going to starve if you don't go out and get more food. Now, I will say, though, that some locations around the country and even around the world are having some shortages. Some of it is not so much that there is a lack of food or material, product that is not available. It's just they can't stock the shelf fast enough, or they can't stock the warehouse fast enough. But there are some products, though, that are not available. So, there's kind of two things going on here. There still are surges of panic buying. And what I've been doing, though, is just to prevent myself from going out at all, is I've just been ordering everything online, and then I just quarantine the packages for a week. And what I've been doing there is I've been buying groceries online and just topping off my supplies every week. And so I kind of stay, at the level that I desire. That makes me feel comfortable. But certainly food and water, this is a big deal right here. If there's some people who say, well, you can go almost a month, without food and you can live. But you and I know, for most people at least, that once, you skip a meal, you're starting to feel it. You feel it, And unless you fast a lot, like I do like 16 to 20 hour fast, like once a week at least, sometimes twice a week. But unless you are used to fasting and your body is used to it, then it's going to be miserable to skip a meal or two, or to go all day without eating. And even if you are used to fasting, you can't tell me that you're going to be feeling good after a day or two of no food. You're going to be feeling a lot more tired. You're not going to be thinking very clearly. It's just not advisable to starve yourself. So anyways, food and water, it's something that I just hear across the board. People wish that they had certain things. In my little circle of friends, it's pretty good. Everybody's doing pretty good. But some people have found out that, well, I have a few deficiencies. Like some people said that I didn't get enough meat, Or other people said, I wish I had another 100 pounds of rice or something. You see, there's people kind of are figuring this out. Like, ideally, they're figuring out what amounts of stuff that they need because they're now in it. They're actually using their supplies, and they're figuring this out as they go. So this is a very big learning opportunity. So take note. If you're taking this extremely serious and you're not leaving your house and you're basically just hunkering down, bugging in, truly sheltering in place, then what we have here is a massive opportunity to learn from this. This is something that can really help you in the future, because if you think that this can't happen again, then, then you're sorely wrong. This will happen again on some level. It may not be the specific threat that happens again, but it'll be maybe a different variation of threat, or it'll be something else that will come along. So we need to learn from this. Now, the next thing is medical, because so many people are trying to avoid doctors and hospitals and things like that. You want to have a very well-stocked medical supplies at hand. And I'm talking, very much a very robust system. And so not just a boo-boo kit, and a lot of people just have that and that alone. I'm talking like a substantial amount of trauma-related gear. And even to go so far as to learn how to, stitch yourself back up, how to use sutures and things. A lot of people just don't know how to do it. Some of it is not that complicated. You just have to practice with it a few times. The next thing is, and this was the one that really kind of was the saddest for me, because it's like so many preppers and that I've seen in the last couple of weeks in particular fell for this one, and they started to panic buy. Some preppers really were not prepared for the defense of their home. We don't know how long that this threat is going to last. In some locations, especially in urban areas, there is a higher possible potential for civil unrest. And so what we have here is that people are just starting to wake up to the fact that, you know what, I need to have something to protect my family and my supplies. They're just realizing that now. I mean, believe it or not, there are preppers who have very minimum amounts of personal protection. It is quite shocking, actually. And then on top of that, you have, even though this video is not about this, a lot of people who are anti-gun, they're now first-time gun owners, because they now see why you would want to have a firearm. Because in a lot of locations, including my own, law enforcement is not responding to calls. Unless you can say something like, there's a homicide or there's someone shooting at me or something like that, they may show up, but everything else, they're just not going to deal with it, because they're trying to take preventative measures as well, not to get sick, from what's going around. So more than ever, you have a reason to have what you need to protect your family and your supplies. And that's not being selfish. I see on the mainstream media all the time of, preppers and survivalists, the gun-toting people and all this, and they're so selfish. They don't want to share anything. And what? Taking care of your family is selfish? What is this? This is crazy nonsense. Crazy nonsense. I mean, if I have someone trying to break into my house in the middle of the night because they're starving to death, I'm not going to allow them to hurt me or kill me or take my stuff. Why would you allow that? You would stop the threat. You would try to calm them down. I would try to de-escalate the situation, and if need be, give them something so that they're not starving at the moment, and send them on their way. Or maybe I would do something different. But I'm just saying, to just pretend that there is no threat out there, that's just like living in fantasy land. But we know that the mainstream media is just completely ridiculous in their thinking. So that's what we have so far. Food and water, trauma, medical supplies, firearms and ammunition. And I'd even go so far to say other types of protective gear, maybe like a bullet-resistant vest, things like that. You can't go wrong with it. And then next we have fuel and or alternative power generation. Now, even though in this particular thread that we're going through at the moment of this recording, it doesn't typically have anything to do with interruptions of power. In an upcoming threat or a different type of scenario, we definitely could have interruptions. I mean, even if it's just a winter storm or a tornado that comes through your area, that it may provide an outage for days or weeks. And so how are you going to deal with that? And so definitely having some fuel put back for a generator, or even if it's just to kind of keep your vehicle topped off, because you may use your vehicle to charge phones or to put an inverter on the battery to power different devices. It's nice to have some extra fuel to do that, as well as, in an ideal sense, a way to generate your own power, especially like solar panels. I mean, that's just really ideal for those in preparedness. And you don't have to go completely crazy with this. You don't have to put thousands and thousands of dollars in some of this. Some of this requires only maybe just a few $100s. You can put panels up on your shed or on your barn or your garage or even on your house. I mean, it doesn't have to be like just this over the top. I mean, it can be very simple in all this. I mean, you can even have a solar, power generation system that's portable, that you just, move it out in the yard and you collect some sun and you charge your batteries, and at night you just put it all away. I mean, people do this. I know people who have those kind of systems. But you have to have something, though. Now, next is a means to replenish your food in case, you can't order things online or you can't go anywhere to get anything. So seeds and gardening tools is the first thing for sure. I would definitely even start, with a lot of sprouting plants, plants that within just 2 to 5 days that will sprout and can be edible right then and there. That's probably my first level of food generation. And then you have the more long-term things you plant in your garden. And you could even go so simple as like a bucket system. That's where a lot of things that I've done in the past is just in bucket systems. It just makes things that much easier. If you have more space or time to raise animals, or you're in an environment that doesn't have restrictions to grow animals or raise animals, I should say, it could be things like chickens or rabbits and things like that, then do that as well. That's a really good idea. And, for me personally, though, it's a little bit more difficult to raise certain types of animals just because of the wildlife in my area. There's so many like foxes and coyotes and just there's a lot of things that are threats to, like chickens, for example, that I would have to have a really robust chicken house. And I'm still, considering that down the road. But it's a lot of maintenance to keep up with these animals. And so it just depends on where you live, your climate and just what is available to you and how much work you want to put into it. But definitely seeds, garden tools, and potentially, to raise animals for meat or it could be eggs or whatever, is a viable option. A lot of people do this and they have great success too. It really just brings down your grocery bill. Even when, everything is going fine, you can use this to your benefit year round almost. Now next, and this is the funny one for me, is toilet paper. Toilet paper. I'd say most preppers have enough toilet paper. It's not that big of a issue. I only keep like 4 to 5 months of toilet paper in reserve. I think that's just fine. But I also keep another 4 or 5 months of wet wipes. And, I have all kinds of other levels, that I could use as well. But, and I'm not saying it's like completely wrong to have a year or two's worth of toilet paper put back. If that's your thing, that's fine. But there were definitely a handful of preppers that were like, oh my gosh, I only have like a week's worth of toilet paper left. And I mean, it's not that funny, I guess, but I just couldn't really believe it. I mean, you got to keep up with this stuff, you know, and you don't need me to preach, but you know, you just got to keep up with all this. And that's why it's good to kind of have a system in place. And, you know, even if it's just you have to mark things on a calendar or anything like that, you have to get a system in place, because emergencies don't typically advertise themselves before they show up. These things typically are pretty abrupt and quick, and you're just like, you got to deal with it. And if you're not ready, you're not ready. And if you are, you are. And that's just how that rolls, you know? And so when it comes to the toilet paper, I mean, like in my area, good luck trying to find any paper products. You go online, you can't find any online store with toilet paper. And this emergency has been going on for over a month. And it's just like, you can't find nothing. Now, maybe in your area, it's different. Maybe you have been able to find it, but not in mine. So just want to put that out there. And lastly, a lot of preppers does not consider hygiene products a real high priority. And that's a big mistake. That was one thing I did right. Over the years, I've stockpiled soap, a lot of soap and wet wipes. I stockpiled even alcohol, hand sanitizer. So I encourage you to keep a good amount, I have like typically 6 to 9 months of just a hand soap alone. And then I have a nice reserve of bar soap. And so, yes, it's different types of soaps and sanitation products clearly is something worthwhile. And that includes like surface sanitation products, just the means to wipe down doors and you know, doorknobs and, you know, handles. And just for example, whenever you know, this is of course before I stopped going out, because I've been staying home for the most part here. And but when I was going out at the very beginning of all this craziness, I would get back in my car after I got out of the store and take a few wet wipes, you know, and wipe down the steering wheel, my hands, the door, my keys and my key fob and my wallet and my credit card and all that stuff, right? I would wipe everything down and just give everything 20 to 30 seconds for that alcohol and the wet wipes to kind of just do its thing. And then when I got home, I do a whole nother round, right? And it's just one of those things you can't be too careful. And it's good to have different levels of sanitation and to deploy those. And so just another example, when I get my mail, regardless if it's a package or a letter, I don't try to touch that with my bare hands. You know, you can call me paranoid, but I'm just being careful. There's a difference. And so I try not to touch it with my physical hands, like, you know, touch it like bare hands. And I quarantine my packages and letters for about 7 to 9 days. That's just kind of my average. And I feel like that when you look at the research for what's the threat that's going on right now, that the threat isn't viable after that point on surfaces in particular, like, you know, paper products and, you know, cardboard and things like that. So that's just what I'm doing, but I'm still wiping the box down after 7 to 9 days and just being careful, you know? So, you know, this is what you have to do if you really want to not, you know, get sick. You know, this is what you have to do if you're trying to be cautious. And what's so sad for me personally is to see just my neighbors not practicing any type of, at least from what I can see, at least. I'm not trying to, you know, label them or put them down, but, you know, just from what I can see, a lot of my neighbors aren't really practicing any type of preventative actions. You know, I've seen them before go get their mail and, you know, they just touch the mailbox door, you know, just moments after the mail lady just put the mail in there, and you don't know if the mail lady is infected. So you don't know, You know, if she just sneezed or scratched her nose or has any type of bodily fluid that she left on that mailbox door. And then I've seen my neighbors touch that mailbox door with their bare hands, open it, touch the mail with their bare hands. And as they walk up the driveway back to the house, I've seen them scratch their face, scratch their nose, rub their eyes. And I mean, right there's a possibility of a transmission. So, you know, you have to be aware of how all this works. You have to be aware of the threat and how to counter it. And you have to have the stuff to be able to outlast the threat. So that's the reason for this video. Once again, hope you guys are safe. You guys take care.